Hello, pirates and poor bastards. My name is TBSKine, and I wasn't originally going to make a video about Pyke before he was officially revealed and released, and we could see his character model and we knew something about his lore, but I got a lot of comments from people, both in the comment section and on my Discord, saying that they would like me to try and speculate. They would like me to try and just take a stab at it, look at his character design and what we know about him so far, and try and come up with some analysis and maybe some predictions about who this guy is going to turn out to be. And you know what? I'm always willing to listen to suggestions or requests from the people who like to watch my videos. So let's do it, and it's going to be fun to see exactly how many of my predictions are even going to be coming true. Now, Pyke is a little bit interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, because of him himself. He's a curious, interesting design. He's a support character who's clearly all about killing people. That's an interesting thing to talk about. But there's something else going on as well that caught my attention. His lore seems to be kind of a remake of an old lore that used to exist in League of Legends, but which doesn't anymore. He has Nautilus's old lore, and I'm curious to see what that's going to mean for the Titan of the Depths himself. So, Pyke. The first thing you notice when you look at Pyke is obviously the giant blood-red bandana. It's a white bandana, as far as I can see, that has blood just running down off of it. At least that's what it's made up to look like. Maybe it's paint, who knows, it could be artistic. But the effect of this bandana makes his face, first of all, it makes him look like he only it makes him look like he only has half a face. It makes it look like he has this giant, bloody, gaping open maw, almost like he's opening up to swallow you, to tear you apart. And this effect is magnified by the fact that the bandana hides his neck. It hides his shoulders, it hides his collarbone, whatever else you might be able to see, and it makes his entire head and his face indeed look like it's this giant, open, gaping maw that's rising out of the darkness of his coat, like the mouth of a shark rising out of the depths of the sea. And sharks are a little bit of a theme with this guy, as you will notice if you take a look literally anywhere on this piece of artwork, because he's surrounded on the left and right by shark's teeth. Rows and rows of shark's teeth. His dagger has shark's teeth on it, and indeed there is a giant shark which swallows him and kills him, and that's part of his origin story. So like sharks are like an obvious part of him. He's also got the dagger in the alleyway that kind of comes up out of the ground like a shark's fin as it's approaching presumably one of his victims. It's not subtle. Sharks are a big deal for this guy, but there's another visual signifier that's a little bit less obvious, but which I think is no less important, and that is fish hooks. If you look at the end of his dagger out there on the left, it's a fish hook. And if you look at the state he's in, when he's being grabbed by the ghost hand and presumably turned into the spiritual wraith or whatever he's turned out to be, he's tangled up in fishing lines. They envelop him like a net and just kind of almost strangle him, and they seem to be an important part of his visual aesthetics as well. It's also something, there's fish lines all over this giant shark that's about to swallow him, and there's fish lines kind of enveloping these drowned bodies on the lower right that are floating in the ocean, and on the end of all these fishing lines are fishing hooks. So fishing hooks are also going to be a major part of who this character is. It might allude to a past as a fisherman, like that maybe that was what he used to do, is he was a fisher guy who fished for things. Or maybe it's alluding to his gameplay concept, like because he's a support character, you would imagine that he has some kind of crowd control. Like that's usually something that happens with support characters, they will have some way to set up their AD carries for a kill. So fish hooks are probably an indication of what that's going to look like. The second thing that his design is signaling about his kit is damage. Lots and lots of damage. That's the thing Riot have been upfront about, is that the guy is a support, but he's not a traditional support. There's something else going on with him. So everything from his obsession with revenge, as symbolized with the list over on the right with the names crossed out, to the heavy just symbols of damage and pain and bleeding and death that are incorporated into his design, tells us that this guy is gonna be a murderer. Like, he's gonna be essentially a support assassin, as it were, which is a weird concept. I'm not sure how they're going to make it work, but I've heard a good buzz from the playtesters who've had a chance to sit down with him and see what his kit is all about, so I'm curious. My guess, bleed damage. I think that's my best guess for how he's going to be a damage support, is that between the shark's teeth and the serrated edges and the bloody bandana, and the fish hooks and that whole thing. To me, it feels like he's going to be someone who does some damage up front, but not a lot, because burst damage is what mages and assassins are for. And then if you stay in range of him, or if he can keep landing hits on you and harass you or whatever, then you're going to take a ton of bleed damage over time. I think that might be the direction they're going in, at least insofar as I can tell by looking at his character design. But again, I'm not a gameplay expert, so take everything I say about gameplay with several dozen pounds of salt. So, what else is going on with Pyke? Well, there's his head. You see those 3 scars that run across his head, and indeed the scar that runs across his eye as well. First of all, 3 scars seems to be the same number as he has spikes or teeth on his dagger. So maybe there's a little bit of cohesion going on there. But I also have a feeling that maybe that's what the ghost hand did to him. Like, the ghost hand that's grabbing him on his head, the position of the fingers looks suspiciously like they could line up with the position of those scars on his head, which there might be some connection there. I'm not really sure. But the scars, despite being fairly subtle, are also, like, they're also a visual metaphor that this guy is scarred. Literally scarred. He has some emotional scars that are represented with scars on his body, which is like character design 101. So that's going on there as well. And it ties into his eyes, where he has one eye that's damaged and one eye that's good, which is a visual signal. Like, the information I've been able to gather is that Pyke is someone who has already had his revenge. Like, he has already killed everybody who was involved with causing his death, which is why his list is all crossed out. But he's not done. Like, he has decided that everybody has to die because of what was done to him. Like, he's become completely obsessed with murdering everybody in Bilgewater, or at least everybody who's a pirate. Maybe there's something going on there, but he's not done just because he murdered the people that actually killed him. He's still going, and he has one eye that doesn't work, which means he doesn't see clearly, which means he has this deranged view on the world. Like, he doesn't see the world clearly. There, again, is a little bit of a visual signifier of what this character is like. And again, that's kind of character design 101. If you want to indicate that someone doesn't see the world correctly, mess with their eyes. That's a typical thing. What else? I had some other point in mind that I wanted to get to. Oh yeah, his lore connections. There have been some speculation on Reddit that Pyke has actually been teased in the lore already, because there's a mention in one of Misfortune's backstories that one of the notable things she did as a pirate hunter was that she tracked down this one specific serial killer and dragged him out of his hiding place, where he had been hiding inside the maw of a long-dead shark or something of that description. Personally, I think that's a coincidence, or it's a retcon. Like, that Riot have looked at that and gone, oh, we could use that as inspiration for a new character, or they're going to retcon it so that it was him. But I don't think when they wrote it that they had Pyke in mind. I would be surprised about that, because Pyke, on the whole, feels a little bit different. Pyke doesn't feel like someone who exists because of misfortune, at least not in the way that he seems to have been conceived as this serial killer ghost, like a Jack the Ripper for Bilgewater, who kind of haunts the streets of Bilgewater and has done for a very long time. He feels more like a mythical figure to me, like a legendary ghost of Bilgewater of some kind that has been around for a very long time, more than he feels like a newcomer who was caused by the political upheaval in Bilgewater. I would prefer it, though, if he had some connection to the current lore state of Bilgewater. If you remember, the Burning Tides event some years ago established that Misfortune has overthrown Gangplank, nearly killed him, and taken his spot as a pirate lord. And that's the current lore state of Bilgewater, is that there's massive political upheaval in the city trying to deal with the power vacuum that has been established after the death of Gangplank and after the death of several other pirate lords who Misfortune killed. I think it would be cool if Pyke was a result of that. Like, if he was a literal manifestation of the instability in Bilgewater that's come to life and just started killing the citizens indiscriminately. From a storytelling perspective, that would be really cool, but that feels to me like something Riot wouldn't do. In terms of, usually, when Riot creates characters and champions, it tends to be characters and champions who have existed for a long time, like who are legends already, League of Legends, as it were, who are legends in the world, who have existed for a long time, who are known entities, who are known about by their friends and enemies, who are at the heights of their powers, that kind of thing. That tends to be the route that Riot goes. They have not, as far as I remember, so far, created a champion who was entirely new to the world. The closest thing we got is Blitzcrank, who is relatively young. I think Zack is also supposed to be like 2 years old, but they're also both still, like, Blitzcrank is the first sentient machine in all of Runeterra, and he's this exceptional individual thing that even though it's only been around for a relatively brief time, it already has its own legend. And Zack is the same thing. He's the only one of his kind. Like, that kind of thing tends to be part of it. So I'd be surprised if he was directly connected to the political upheaval in Bilgewater, but I hope he is. And all of that lore discussion leads us on to the thing I teased at the start of the video, his connection to Nautilus, or maybe his lack of connection. I don't know if there is one. Because what is the source of Pyke's powers? Like, why is he a ghost creature? Is it just because he wants a lot of revenge? No, the teaser doesn't really signal that. The teaser signals that he falls into the mouth of a shark in the water while holding a dagger trying to kill it, which is commendably brave by the man. And then he gets grabbed by this evil ghost hand from the depths, which seems to be made out of seawater. Like, that's the aesthetic it's got going on. It's like it's made out of water that grabs him, and then the same color that is on that ghost hand gets transferred to his eyes and to his magic effects. They're all that same shade of teal. Even his dagger's blade in this teaser image, by the way, has the same teal shade as the ghost hand that grabs him. And that teal is a color we've seen before, specifically with Illaoi, the god that she worships. Nakagabarus, I think is the name, otherwise known as the Bearded Lady, is an ancient goddess of the sea that tests people and puts them through trials and shit like that. And the color symbols seem to indicate that he has a connection to her as well, that he's another avatar of the Bearded Lady, as it were. And that's interesting because that's also the lore state that Nautilus occupies currently. Nautilus, as he's conceptualized right now, is a titan of the depths who kind of acts like an enforcer for the Bearded Lady. Like, if you don't do the right rituals, if you don't pay the right respects to the Bearded Lady, then when you're out sailing, Nautilus is going to throw his anchor up from the depths, smash your ship, and drag you all to Davy Jones' locker, essentially. That's where Nautilus is in his lore right now. He's this ageless spirit of the sea that dispenses justice for a goddess. But that didn't used to be his lore. Now, if you've watched the What's the Deal with Nautilus video, we've already discussed this at length, but his lore used to be that he was a luckless sailor. He was someone who was commissioned to go and explore a certain part of the sea, and then he was betrayed by his crewmates out of fear when he was grabbed by some eldritch mystical thing from the depths that tried to pull him down. His crewmates just threw him overboard because they were scared that he was going to drag them all down with him. So he falls to the depths of the sea while encased in a diving suit and blacks out. And when he wakes up, he's fused into the suit. He can't leave it. The suit is part of him now. So he goes back to Bilgewater by walking along the seafloor, finds that not only is his family gone and nobody ever seems to have heard of them, nobody seems to have heard of him or know who he is or what happened to him, and his memory is also completely fucked up. So in search of answers, he joins the League of Legends, which was the tournament of champions that used to be part of the League of Legends lore. That used to be his lore, but then it was changed, so he's the enforcer for the Bearded Lady, and now Pyke seems to have taken over that aspect of being someone who was betrayed by their crewmates or whatever, and who's seeking vengeance for that betrayal, who was thrown into the depths, consumed by something mysterious and magical, and then returns to seek answers or seek reparations for his past. That seems to be the route they're going with him. But if he also has a connection to the Bearded Lady, to Nakagabarus, the tentacle thing that Illaoi carries around, if he also has a connection to that god, is that because they want to move Nautilus out of that role? Like, there's been some rumors that Riot have been reaching out to Nautilus mains and asking them what they want his lore to be, which is usually an indication that they're working on some kind of an update. So I wonder if, in conjunction with Pyke's release, Nautilus is also going to have his position in the lore clarified more. I would like that, because I prefer Nautilus not be the dark terror of the seas. I kind of... Nautilus to me has always been kind of a goofy champion. Like, he Spider-Mans his way around the rift with his anchor, just throwing it and whee! Flying around. And he has these goofy emotes where he swims through the air. He has this weird, clunky walk cycle, and his model is all kind of distorted and looks kind of cutesy. And I would prefer if they leaned into that, because Pyke is the ultimate Bilgewater edgelord. Like, I don't think you're gonna get any darker or grimmer or more edgelordy than him when you're dealing with like a pirate aesthetic than the drowned man who comes back for revenge. Like, that's about as dark as it gets for pirates. So instead of making Nautilus this dark, scary thing with a tragic backstory, or without any backstory, like, oh, he's just a spirit that has always existed, is kind of boring to me. I would like him to be leaned a little bit more into the goofy stuff. Like, I would like him to be kind of a fun champion instead. I think that would be cool if that was the direction that they decided to take Nautilus in reaction to Pyke. I don't know if they're gonna, though. Like, it might be that they're just gonna hold on to he's the ageless spirit of the depths thing with no connection to humanity whatsoever, and then Pyke is the drowned man seeking revenge kind of archetype, taking over that whole spot for him. But it would kind of suck if they were both then associated with the bearded lady. Like, that, it's a little bit too much of her. Like, then we have Illaoi and Pyke and Nautilus, and God knows who else is going to be associated with the bearded lady over time. And that, I would prefer if there was, like, maybe more than one goddess of the sea. Surely there's room for, like, more than just psychotic deep trench of Mariana's tentacle god. Anyway, that's about all the speculation I can muster for Pyke. Now, if you are so inclined, you can support this channel on Patreon, which is something that it's tremendously helpful to me. I am a freelance artist. It's not a lifestyle that affords a lot of economic certainty, so knowing that there's a certain amount of funds available each month, that really helps unstress my life, as it were. Just chasing commissions all the time and not knowing when you're going to get paid next time, it's hard on a soul. So thank you so much to the people who support me on Patreon. I can't state enough how much that helps. And if you are so inclined, you can support it over there as well. If every penny, every dollar you support me with will be banked into a bank of commission support that you can use to buy art commissions from me, or you can even commission videos from me. I'm working on a pricing scheme for that, if you are so inclined. If you don't want to, that's 100% fine as well. You also get voting privileges on future video topics. The voting round for this time is closed now, and it's the Institute of War, the Great League of Legends lore retcon. That's going to be the topic. We're going to talk about what League of Legends lore used to be, what it has become, and what that means for the game. But soon, very soon, I'm going to be putting up a new poll to ask for a new topic for the next video, which you can get to vote on. You can also suggest topics to me if you are a Patreon supporter. That's also an option that's available to you. So if you want to do that, you should feel free to do that, because it's helpful. Like, I'm not overstating it when I say that it helps a lot, and I'm very grateful for the people who do it for me. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been TB Sky, and if you are so inclined, you can subscribe to this channel. You can also leave a like, and there is... I mean, technically, there is a dislike button, but a long time ago, that dislike button was aboard a ship, and they came into a horrible storm. It was absolutely terrible, and during that storm, the dislike button got tangled up in some of the rigging and got thrown overboard and dragged behind the ship and died, and it's absolutely... It was an awful story, and ever since then it has haunted my YouTube channel page, and anyone who clicks on it becomes haunted by the dislike button, and the dislike button will show up in your mirror, and it will be there when you turn around at night, and it's very scary and frightening and intimidating, even if it's just a small thumbs down. So if you're gonna click it, just have a priest ready or something. Thank you very much for watching.